Okay, well, welcome to the Ridge Community Church podcast. And we have a special podcast today because this is, I'd love to say it's a special time, but it's not a special time. All of us are very aware of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and just the sheer brutality and senselessness of the whole thing. And so we wanted to take the opportunity to kind of bypass all the news and all the social media stuff and hear directly from someone who is there. And so we have a special guest with us. Olga Behncke and her husband, Rob, actually attend the Ridge. And how many years have you been attending the Ridge?
I am attending Ridge since 2017.
2017.
Yes.
Okay.
And
you serve on the online team?
Yes, I serve with the online tech team.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, I was serving with the tech team in the main auditorium. So I've been blessed with connections and just watching people do their thing to bring Jesus into every home, and that's what we do here. It's been amazing. I'm very blessed to be part of the Ridge, and especially now.
So you and your husband, and you have 3 kids, and what I love about this is that you're going to really help bring some clarity and honestly some humanity to what's going on in our world right now. So thank you for doing this, by the way.
Thank you. I'm hoping that, Jesus puts the right words in my mouth.
He will. He will. Olga, you are from Odessa, Ukraine.
Yes.
That's where you grew up. Tell us just about your childhood. Tell us about Ukraine, and then spending some time with Russia as well.
Yeah. My childhood, my adolescence, and my young adulthood belongs to Odessa, Ukraine. That's where I grew up. And that is my hometown. It is the 3rd largest town in Ukraine. Kiev is the largest, and then Kharkov, that's been destroyed, is the 2nd largest. And then Odessa is the 3rd, and the threat is now facing Odessa. Growing up in Odessa was a wonderful thing. There's a lot of good memories. It's located on the Black Sea coast with mild climate. So my summers were busy going to the beach with my friends and just spending time there. I went to the university over there, getting my degree in political science. And all my friends from that period of time are there, who are like family to me. And now they're in peril. And that night on February the 23rd, we were watching the news channel that we normally watch. I love falling asleep to it. But something was different. The anchor his facial expression changed, and he said, "We have some breaking information coming." And I was like half hazy, almost asleep. And then his next words were, "We have information that Russia bombed Kiev." My heart sunk. I could not believe what I was hearing, because the bombing of Kiev is something that started World War II. And at least for the Soviet Union at that time, which resulted in many millions of lives lost, and impacted lives and history of the whole country, the whole world. I could not believe what I was hearing. In addition to that, the bombing was not just only Kiev. Ukraine was attacked from multiple locations. It was unbelievable. I was listening till I just could not stay up anymore.
I bet you couldn't.
I could not sleep that night, and been very, very disturbed.
So Ilya, so just kind of for us in the news in our country, we're just recently hearing about all the Ukraine-Russia stuff going on. Okay, so it's really recent for us. But has this really been a recent thing? And was the invasion a surprise to the people of Ukraine? Fill in the gaps for us with all that.
The extent of the invasion was a surprise. People were not prepared, for sure. Even though the information was saturating that the forces are being built outside the border of Ukraine on the Russian side, people could not believe that something like this was actually in the works. Ukraine is a younger country. Its territorial unity came to be in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed and 15 new independent states were born. And according to the way that our political system of the world's functioning and the countries are accepted as territorial unities is when the world community is acknowledging the existence of the country as such in its territory, and that's when the independence begins for the country that happened for Ukraine in 1991. And this fact actually invalidates fully the lecture that the world heard from apparently great historian Mr. Putin about the history of Ukraine not even being a valid country and therefore not deserving to continue existence. Of course, that was something that he needed to do to justify something that was happening next. What's even more cynical there is that just the day before the invasion started in Ukraine, Putin went with the flower wreath to the monument of the eternal. There is an eternal fire monument by the Kremlin wall that's dedicated to the unknown soldiers, commemorating everyone who died in the World War II. The 23rd of February is a special day there. It is called the Army Day. And it's actually kind of like a substitute for a Father's Day as well. It's honoring people who died in the World War II, commemorating the current armed forces, and always it is celebrated with a ceremony of the country's leader doing this ceremonial gesture of offering the flower wreath at that monument. So he did that with a straight face, knowing full well that
Was that like the 100th anniversary of that? I had read something that there was some significant day. It was like the 100th anniversary of something that he was celebrating or acknowledging at that time. That's not what you're talking about here.
No,
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
The World War II ended in 1945.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have 100 years yet.
I just mean for him, for Russia.
For Russia.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe this is a part of the information that I do not have.
Okay.
And I don't know everything.
No, that's okay.
Whatsoever.
No, that's okay. Hey, fill in a gap for us. What brought you from Ukraine to the United States?
I actually, my father, my kid's father, I met him in Ukraine when he was a Peace Corps volunteer. And I came to the United States following him.
Mm-hmm.
That was my journey. And later, that marriage collapsed. And it's been quite a bit of time ago. And now I am in my Next marriage,
Mhm.
happy marriage.
Yeah, I got a great husband for sure.
Yes, for sure.
What age were you when you came to the United States?
I was 20 years old.
What was that like coming to a brand new country at 20?
Well, it was definitely a cultural shock. And for me, it was a cultural shock many times when I came to the United States. Not just only because I came from Odessa, which has a population of over 1 million people now, and at that time it was even bigger. It was over 2 million people at that time. I came to San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and it was lovely. It was beautiful, but everything, it was Bay Area, so it was not something that I envisioned of the United States, which came from movies, skyscrapers, and jungles of buildings and cars and lights and everything.
That's not San Francisco.
Mm.
Yeah.
That did not really transcribe into reality that I came to, but it was beautiful. I fell in love with the area. I fell in love with it. The climate there is just so beautiful, and so we lived there for a little bit, and then I had another cultural shock as we moved to Oskaloosa, Iowa.
Boy, you went from one one extreme to the other, huh?
With one, I remember that approaching Oskaloosa, Iowa, I was told to roll down the window and smell the money. It turned out that we were passing a pig farm. So that was another cultural shock that I have experienced, and that was before I came to Wisconsin in year 2002.
When Iowa prepared you for Wisconsin, at least.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Good. So when you're living in Ukraine and you know you're moving to the United States, is that something that at that point someone who lives in Ukraine wants to go to the United States, or I mean, what's the mindset there?
Well, the period of time when I left was 1999. It was the time when Ukraine was still struggling a lot. After the Soviet Union collapsed. There was a lot of economic difficulties, and the new state was having all kinds of problems with corruption, which actually continued. And a lot of young people did not see perspectives in Ukraine, and a lot of young people wanted to leave. So for me, I actually wanted to go to London. Never have I imagined in my life that I will end up in the United States. My ambitions did not go further than London, but here I was in the United States.
Have you been to London?
I have not yet. That's something that's still on my bucket list. Yeah.
Let's go back to the invasion of your country.
Yes.
Every day now, whether it be on the news, social media, and I know you are hearing from people directly in Ukraine, friends and family and such.
Yes.
What's it like every day now? You get up and that's all you're hearing about?
The very first day, I probably went into some sort of slumber, and when I woke up, I started thinking about everyone who's back home, and contacted my friends to actually ask, is it real? I still don't believe it. What's happening? And they told me that yes, they heard explosions, bad explosions from the side of the sea, and that they were scared. They were confused. That was the information. They did not know what to do. They said that none of them were prepared. If someone, at least some of them thought that this was a possibility, they would have left. But no, all of them were there having plans to go to a birthday party the next day, and none of that happened. It's been only 2 weeks, but it seems like it's been a whole era in between. And for them, that night was the cut off of their life before, as they entered the new chapter of their life during and hopefully after the war. And that is something that is unbelievable. With the further accounts that I had from them, they had to figure out how to survive when things became worse. They learned things how to make bomb shelters out of their basements and corridors. They learned a 2-wall rule.
What's that?
You have to put 2 walls between yourself and the outside in case of explosion. For the first wall to catch the explosion and the second one to protect you from it. That's the knowledge that no one should have.
To know. Mm-hmm.
Should have to know. Yep. They were sleeping with their necessities prepared in the basements of their homes or in the corridors. People there, a lot of them, they live in a different setup than we do here. They live in these multi-story apartment complexes that you probably have seen on the news that are being ruined.
They're being ruined, yeah.
Those apartment complexes are huge. Some of them are housing about 300 families. So when one of them destroyed,
That's a lot of people.
That's about 1,000 people that become homeless right in that moment. That is if they survive. And that is something that's unbelievable. There is no logical explanation for this conflict. No matter how Putin's trying to justify it, there is absolutely no logic in what's happening.
So with that, what do you think the ultimate goal is?
The ultimate goal? Well, here is the thing. If Russia stops fighting, there will be no war. But if Ukraine stops fighting, there will be no Ukraine. Which way it's going to go? I am hoping that the international community will do everything in their power to protect Ukraine and to protect its existence. The ethnic unity right now in Ukraine is tremendous.
Yeah, you've been posting about that. You've been talking about, you use the phrase unity of people, and you've been talking a lot about that. Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, I think Ukraine showed the whole world what courage is, starting with its president. When he was offered a chance to leave, he came up with a now famous phrase, "The fight is here. I need ammunition, not a ride."
What do you think that did for the people of Ukraine when he said that?
Definitely raised their morals and gave them hope. And then the sailors on the Zmyny Island who bravely informed the Russian warship where they need to go and what they need to do.
Was that the 13 sailors that did that?
The 13 sailors, yes. Yes. So, and again, they gave the world another slogan. And to the brave people who are going in front of the incoming tanks with their bare hands, protesting, and begging to stop for the invaders to leave. That's what courage is at its best. And that is the whole country. I'm so proud of having history of my own life from that country. And for our people to show that courage to the whole world and give the lesson to the whole world. And President Zelensky, actually, during his campaign in 2019, before he became a president, he said that, I think I'll be a good president. I think my presidency is going to go through several stages. At first, they will mock me, but then they will learn to respect me. And when I'm gone, they'll be crying that my time is over.
I tell you, it's interesting watching President Zelensky, and because he was a comedian, right?
He was a comedian, yes.
He was a comedian, right? And gave politics a shot. He gets elected. And I love how little do we know he's a prophet now, because that's exactly what's happening for him. But how powerful it is. You just never know what's in someone until they're put in certain situations. And now we're seeing just the courage and the selfless leadership, the love for people that he is leading with. It's inspiring. It's amazing. If they always do approval ratings here. Everybody's about presidential approval ratings, all stuff. If they could do that over in Ukraine, I bet you he would be pretty close to 100%.
Yes, I agree.
Because of the job that he's doing in his leadership.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And this is the moment when he is fulfilling his promise to be the good president to his country. His history is very interesting. He is of the same generation with me. And how his comedian career started is there is a stand-up comedy competition show that everybody grew up on. It's like it's loved by a lot of people. So students in all universities, there would be a team that would kind of practice that comedy, that stand-up comedy routines, and then they would come and compete against each other, and then they would come to the competition that would be televised for everyone to see. It's called KVN. It was the Club of Joyful and Witty. Yeah, KVN. And he was a part of that team that came to the televised level. So that's how his comedian career started. And then from there, being in the spotlight, he built on it. He built an empire of comedy. So comedy club kind of thing like that. So he built that. Then he became an actor, and he recorded. He played a president in. It was not really a sitcom. It's just it was a series of movies, and it was called the Sluga Naroda, the slave of the people. The servant of the people. I'm sorry, servant of the people. And it was about just an ordinary guy becoming a president and making true changes in the community. And to tell you the truth, that movie pretty much was the campaign. So when the time campaign came around, he really did not have to do anything.
It was already done.
It was already done. People loved him. The only thing that he had to do was just to add his platform, and everybody supported it. He got 72%.
Oh, that's great.
He got 72%.
What a great story.
And but then when he came to power, his Ukrainian was a little bit broken. So people started mocking him for that. And he was still finding his way around. So people were... his ratings started going down, and people, again, like he was saying, they'll be mocking me first. And they were, and saying that he is weak, and then he's being played by the outside powers and things like that. Yet he stood. He stood against Putin because Putin many times was pretty much giving derogatory remarks to Ukraine and to Zelensky, pretty much not even like considering him as a real person or, like a real power at all. And pretty much like he was expecting that he's going to be able to tell him what to do, but it wasn't so. And then
there he is.
There he is.
Mm-hmm.
He did not take the ride.
Yeah. So the average American might not know this. So I want you to, once again, this is one of those things where you can fill in the gaps for us. Mm-hmm. But how does what's going on in Ukraine impact this country?
Well, the conflict stopped. It is not a conflict, it's a war. And it stopped being some distant regional conflict when the nuclear disaster was threatened against the world. It stopped being a local, distant conflict when a little girl in Mariupol died yesterday of dehydration. It stopped being a distant local conflict when 2 million refugees flooded neighboring countries. The implication of that, definitely like a shock wave, will hit every country in the world, including us. It is unavoidable. And we're feeling it. And the only thing that we can do about it is to soften the blow and use that two-wall rule in a different way. One, the first wall is, I guess, for the world community to try and help Ukraine with whatever supplies and equipment that they might need. And two, the second wall is to absorb the people. If that happens, then there would be a hope for returned stability. That is my opinion.
Olga, when you say absorb the people, you mean
the refugees,
give them a home.
Give them a home, give them a life, because their lives been turned upside down. Their lives will never go back to what they were just 2 weeks ago. None of them were planning on traveling and into the unknown. A lot of them they're walking for miles to get to the border because of the lines. They're walking for miles in mud through the farmland in hail, rain, and snow until their blistered feet bleed so that they can get to the border crossing and cross it into safety. The lucky ones have people like Danielle from Spain, like Oleg, like Pastor Oleh, who are putting together systems that are waiting for them to accept them. But there are those who are falling through the gaps, and there are a lot of gaps. Just recently, well, everything is recent. It's been just 2 weeks, but it seems like a decade. Just recently, he had people on his bus that didn't eat for 2 days. And if he can do more for more people, and we can help him to decrease the suffering of as many people as possible, because it is suffering for them, and they are the lucky ones.
And for us who are just hearing about Pastor Oleh. Tell us about who he is, how you got connected with him.
No, yeah. When I was contemplating about the situation and about my friends in Odessa, I started looking. I'm the kind of person who deals with stress through action, and so I needed to do something. So social media came to play. I was just desperately searching through different resources and Facebook posts, and God works miracles. I saw the post by this girl, Daniela. She's from Spain, and well, I did not know who she was or what she was, and she had a post saying that we're gathering people in Odessa. We're gathering them on the buses to take them to safety to Romania. If you know anybody who would want to do this, please let us know. And there was just a second or third day into this war, and immediately I started talking to my friends and trying to convince them to go. And meanwhile, I said, Danielle, can you please reserve some space? And she's like, yes, of course, right now. And people were hesitant. They could not believe that this was happening. They had a hard time filling their buses initially. But that was just only initially. By the time I got back in touch with her, they already filled 2 buses, and 200 people had to stay behind. So she's like, we need to do more. We need to do more. And take that. She's coordinating, finding people in Romania. She is from Romania herself. She has a connection there to the church in Romania that is helping these refugees, and to Oleg, to Pastor Oleh. So eventually, like I said, well, my friends, they were not willing to leave their husbands because by then there was an order that the all men aged 18 through 60 are not able to leave Ukraine because they possibly would be needed for military. But women and children were encouraged to leave, and elderly. My friends didn't want to go, and except for one. She's a widow with a child, and she said that I cannot take this anymore. We hear explosions and multiple sirens a day. I have panic attacks every single time. I cannot sleep anymore. That was probably the fourth of the 5th day of the conflict. It's like, I haven't slept in 5 days. I just can't do it anymore. What can we do? I'm like, okay, well, Daniela, can you please put her on the bus? And they did. And we started following her story. And she is one of those people who walked until their blistered feet bled. And she's one of those people who walked with one change of clothes in her backpack, toothbrushes, and a tube of toothpaste to share. That's it. To the border. Into the unknown. Because for her, there's no family that she had over there. There is no one.
And this is in Romania?
She crossed the border between Ukraine and Moldova.
Okay, she did go to Moldova. Okay.
She went to Palanca. So that's how she got to to be part of the people who benefited from the service that Pastor Oleh and team are doing. Mm-hmm. So Daniela was able to arrange for with the Christian families, and that's the other thing
so
in
that's
that area.
How all this came together.
Yes.
Okay, and so just for those of you who don't know what Oleh and I are talking about is that the Ridge Community Church is actually trying to mobilize their entire church and the community, for
Yes.
that matter, to collect as many supplies. I mean, we were talking about one semi. We hope we do multiple semis. And we fly those supplies over to Pastor Oleh was saying in the phone conversation that he was by the border, and there was, at that point, 5 miles of people.
And that's
that were lined up.
That's better. That's an improvement.
Yeah. And it's 5 miles of people lined up. And so we're trying to mobilize our whole community and then ship that over there. And someone, Kelly, who's on our staff, asked him a question, well, how much is too much? And he said, we'll never have too much.
Yes.
That's how great the need is. And so that's what you were talking about, how that all came together. I hadn't heard that backstory earlier. That's powerful. That's really great.
Yes. So she has connections with the Romanian church. And again, God works. The first person that I got connected with was a God's person. And it is very dangerous in that part of the world. And being a part of the Christian network is providing security and safety. It's kind of like a vetoing process. If you're getting with the Christian family, you know that you're going to be safe. Otherwise, there is a lot of dangerous situations that
and that's
people
how Christians are seen over there at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was able to find people who came and picked up my friend from the border and gave them a place to sleep and take them to the buses, to the buses that Pastor Oleh is administering. And I am hoping that he can do more. Yes, and this was just the beginning of her journey. And she spent another 11 plus hours on the bus getting to Bucharest with other people that Pastor Oleh was had on that bus. It was in that moment, that day, they had 3 buses that they were sending out from Chisinau, Moldova. They actually, it was the moment when they were like, we ran out of funding. We cannot have any more buses, and we don't know when the next one is going to be. And luckily, they were able to find a little bit more to sustain them for a couple more days. But this is something that they are doing. They live day by day. They do not have plans saying that, oh, okay, well, you can go on the bus on Monday or on Wednesday. They don't know if they're going to have a bus on Monday or on Wednesday. They have a bus today. If they have a bus today, that's a blessing. It means that they're able to transport more people. And with Daniela's help and connection to another pastor in Budapest, his name is Florin Ivanovic. His network of people, they were able to house my friend who's staying right now with the family. They're wonderful. And they accepted her as their sister. And she's just so grateful. Without actually, for her, it is without an end date where she can stay there however long she needs. That's how open-hearted the people are.
Wow.
It is. Her story is the lucky story. Her story is wonderful, despite of the trauma that will live in her heart for the rest of her days, from the explosions and the impending danger of your home being hit. She is the lucky one. And there are so many in Ukraine that aren't as lucky.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm really glad that when you get stressed, you act, because God really led that to some really good things. So
Absolutely.
really grateful that you do.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that you would like to say that we haven't talked about? Did we leave anything out?
The only thing is, well, it's not the only thing. I'm overwhelmed with how much the need is. And I was telling you in one of our text messages that I think I bit on more than I can chew, because I involved myself with the group that was providing translations of the medical supply request lists from the hospitals in Ukraine that are being forwarded to the organizations here in the United States. And the need is great. Right now, there is a bottleneck effect at the border of Ukraine of supplies that are having hard. Finally, the green corridors are opened up, and the supplies are trickling down. But it's hard to direct the supplies to specifically a location in a specific place, in specific city in Ukraine. Right now, for example, in Odessa, the soldiers that are fighting the war, the war came way too close to Odessa, Kherson and Nikolaev. The wounded soldiers are starting to come in. And when I am translating a 14-page list of medical supplies that's needed to treat 100 wounded, that is something. That is something. I learned a lot.
That. Yeah, you never thought you'd be doing that.
No, I learned a lot. And right now we're working on figuring out the network within Ukraine who would be shipping things directly into the hospital. Because there are supply centers that are outside of Ukraine. But those supply centers, they're receiving help. But there is, for most of the organizations, and even with the Wisconsin Ukrainians, then Ukrainian Milwaukee, they are doing a lot of efforts, but they do not know which particular hospital their help is going to go to. And we're trying to establish a little bit more control over where our help is going. So, for example, right now, the Odessa City Hospital number 10 is experiencing need, and we're trying to get medical supplies specifically to them, according to their list. And that is something that we're working on right now. The medical supplies are being gathered by that Romanian church that I mentioned earlier. Yeah. Yes. So there's a lot of work by different Christian churches that it's being done. And it is wonderful to see how God works through this war, through this darkness, because these churches, they're getting connected. And the ministry of God is such that He will bring so many more people to Him through this. Because if Christian organizations are serving people, despite of Christian, non-Christian, everybody's hearts are opening up, and God does their work with those hearts thereafter.
Yeah, as you were talking about, and we mentioned earlier, is that if you want to know more about what we're at the Ridge doing, you can go to theridgecc.com/Ukraine. What's great about it, Olga, is we've already got a couple churches in our network that are helping out. And so they're doing their own sites and then dropping things. They're going to drop things off here as we try to, like I said, do a semi worth of supplies and all that stuff. And so we're really starting to see even the church in America.
Yeah.
That's coming together on behalf of Ukraine and what's going on there.
Fantastic. And I'm so proud of being a part of the Ridge. Even because of that, we are kind of pioneering this way through. And everybody's learning new things and how we can make the most impact. And it is wonderful to have people that are trusted in that part of the world that will continue to carry on the mission for us. So they're There are the hands of God right in the spot, and we just need to do what we can here.
Do you mind praying for us?
I would love to.
Or
Yeah.
do you want me to pray for us?
I think
Which
you're
one-
doing a great.
Which one do you feel
you're-
most comfortable
yeah.
with? Oh, yeah. You're the one who's done all the tough work, so why don't I do that for you? All right,
Yes,
Father,
you
thank you for this sacred time. And thank you for what you're doing in Olga's life, but more importantly, how are you using her to point to just what's going on in a part of the world that we need to know what's going on in. And Father, the need is something that we can't even grasp in this country. But God, I pray that you would stir hearts, that you would move hearts, and that you would just lift up leaders and people and communities, that they would feel such a deep heart and a calling to what's going on in Ukraine, that we would sacrifice, that we would give, that we would serve to care for those right now, God, who are going through something that I don't think any single one of us can even imagine or grasp. Losing your home, losing your country, maybe losing family members and friends. And so, Father, I pray that you would move us. Father, we pray for what's going on over there. And as always, as I've been praying, God, that you would end this thing and end this thing quickly, that you would just supernaturally move and you would protect the innocent, protect the people of Ukraine. And Father, you would just step in. And if there's something else that you're doing, Father, we just pray that most of all, that you would make your name known, and that there would be just a movement of your spirit in this place and in that country and in that region, that people would turn to you in just droves. So, Father, thank you for Olga. Thank you for her heart. Thank you for her willingness to talk about this and what it means to us and what it's done for us and how you're using it in our lives. And we pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for sharing your time, for your heart with us.
I appreciate it so much. And yeah, I'm hoping that so many hearts are touched and it will continue and we will make an impact. We cannot do everything, of course, but the maximum that we can.